guys, how we doing? Welcome back, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in and the responses I get and the following I get. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you liking, sharing, and just talking about what we got going on. So we're leaning towards getting close to a month in this war in Iran, and things are not looking any better. Looks like America's in over its head like it usually gets when they jump into these wars. I'm not really sure who's in charge of intelligence there at the White House, but it appears that they left out a lot of key information when they were trying to convince our president to go to war in Iran. I really still haven't figured out what we gain from this. I think they say that we're safer or something like that, but I don't think we're any safer in America than we already were. I mean, after all, we spend the most on defense in the entire free world. So I don't really think America should ever feel threatened. People will say things like, oh, well, 9/11 happened. Yeah, well, that was because our government didn't defend us the way they were supposed to. We'll save that for the podcast about 9/11, huh? But anyways, let's just touch base on where we're at as Americans and as we further endeavor into this war that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. Let's pray they don't try to put any boots on the ground, because if you thought Iraq was a mess, Iran's going to be an even bigger mess, as their country is like 3 times the size of Iraq, I think, and they have 94 million people. So that's going to make it really hard. The terrain in Iraq is really unforgivable. You can't go in through the north because you got the mountains. You can't use the strait because clearly you're like sitting ducks trying to get in there. You can't really go through the south. It's a real nightmare though. We really don't. I don't even know honestly how they would get troops into Iran, let alone have a full stronghold on dropping thousands and thousands of soldiers in without being compromised on your way in, I guess. But I'm not a war strategist, so I could very well be wrong, but just based on, just the geography and the amount of people and the amount of soldiers that Iran has in a country of 94 million people, once they stand together, I'm pretty sure they got close to 1 million soldiers who are willing to die for them, not including any extreme factions that pop up because Westerners are yet again invading a country in the Middle East. And that's what I have a problem with, besides innocent people dying as quote unquote collateral damage. I think that's disgusting to call it that, to be honest. Human beings are unique and human beings are special, and everyone should be treated that way. And it really bothers me that here in America they fight over being pro-life and not pro-life, and it's the neocon Republicans that are usually dragging us into wars, okay? Now, I don't side with either Republicans or Democrats. It's kind of like religion to me. I think that it's bullshit. I think that it's here to divide us all, and a lot of people use like religion as some form of, they have like some form of religious authority over human beings, but it doesn't. They're like, oh, like my God's better than your God, or my book's better than your book. Like, let's just face it, okay? Let's just break this down and get it over with right now, okay? God never wrote a single book in his life, okay? In his existence, I guess we should call it, not life, because I don't really think God even has a life. He just has an existence, okay? God doesn't speak any language. He doesn't have a race. He doesn't even have a gender, okay? He's a creator, and that's how he speaks, is through creation. And that's what we are. We are his creation. He created all men equally because we are all equal. We all have blood. We all have bones. We all have a soul. Some of us don't really have a brain, but we all still have brains. And then they use this religion as like some all full authority, as if it's even true. Because most of the books that we get that are religious are filtered and there's stuff taken out of it. And it's, there's, it just doesn't, it's all third party, okay? All of it's third party. Every single written word we ever read is third party, as a matter of fact, because none of us were there. All right, I understand that writing stuff down is how history is passed on, but you have to understand that that history gets altered based on the winner. That's why they call it history, because it's his story, and they're going to tell us the way they want it to be. Like the stories that we get in America about the war with Iran and how, this Trump is so funny. He's so funny. He's like, oh, we blew up all their missiles. We blew up all their military. Like, they have no military. They have no navy. They have no this and that. Like, and then 2 days later, Iran shoots ballistic missiles that go farther than what they said they could go. So, Iran's lying about the distance of their missiles. I think that's more bullshit. So it's just, when we get into these wars and they're not popular, it's like they try to find every reason to get support for these wars. Let's see, 2 days ago, I think I made a video about a 19-year-old kid that was going around that they said the Iranian regime hung because he was like protesting against the thing, and so they hung him, and he's like this all-time wrestler, and he's 19 years old, and they made it seem really devastating. That would be devastating, except for the kid was charged and convicted of killing 2 cops with a machete. So, I mean, that's the facts. People can get mad and say, like, oh, he didn't do it, and his family says he didn't do it, and he got tortured to say that he did it. If I just killed 2 cops with a machete, I'm certainly not going to just say, hey, yeah, it was me, bro. Like, no, that's not how it works. And Americans really cannot honestly say anything about torture, because we had a whole entire torture program where we got information from people that didn't want to give us information. So, the thing, I have such a problem with the moral high ground that Americans think we have over these countries. Like, we haven't just been slaying Muslims for the last 20 years in the Middle East. I think our number's reaching close to 6 million dead over in the Middle East since 1990-ish, something like that. That's a lot of bodies, bro. 6 million bodies, like those are Holocaust numbers. But, we're not going to hear anything about the outrage of a Muslim Holocaust happening right now or anything like that. So it kind of bothers me. People will say, oh, Muslims are violent people and this and that. Like, actually, per capita, Americans are far more violent than Muslims are. Even if you look at domestic violence numbers, our violence here is extremely high among Americans, especially for how small our population is versus how big the Muslim population is. I think it breaks out per capita. There's 1 death per every 74 Americans caused per 74 Americans, and there's 1 death per 800 Muslims caused, is the comparison data anyways. They talk about how countries like Iran have these crazy regimes in charge, and they're tyrannical, and they kill people, and they're killing their own people. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't suck, bro. I don't not have sympathy for these people, not at all. I definitely do have sympathy for them, and I definitely feel bad that that's what they have to deal with. But America has its own problem at home, okay? Like, we have big problems at home. We kill kids for stealing Skittles. We choke motherfuckers out for selling cigarettes outside of a store, all right? Traffic stops turn into death stops. And I'm not blaming the cops for it, because there's violent factions here in America as well. There's an extremely violent faction in America, as a matter of fact. But you got to look at what those problems stem from and why it really started. We lose jobs, we lose income, people struggling to survive, people struggling to feed their families. So they're going to turn to different ways to make money and different ways to provide for their families. And a lot of those ways in turn include violence, you know? So, like I said, there's a lot of violence and a lot of stuff here that should probably be fixed before we go to war, because that's what we're constantly doing. We've spent $8.2 trillion in wars in the Middle East, and we haven't fixed anything at home. Like, we fixed nothing at home. You know, it's kind of disturbing to think about that we're so willing to spend money overseas getting nothing as a return of investment, except for our soldiers coming home in body bags and their families receiving folded up flags, as if that's some type of like sympathy because you lost your family member to probably a worthless war, to be honest. I mean, we can go back to Iraq. People will say we went there because they violated some ceasefire in Kuwait or some bullshit. But before that, we had this civilian from Israel named Benjamin Netanyahu who was advocating for war in Iraq, saying that they had weapons of mass destruction and they would use them on America, and they're the biggest threat to America, and after we go to war with Iraq, it'll stabilize the Middle East. And yeah, well, we saw how that worked out for stabilizing the Middle East, huh? It's still not stable. And we've been to war with 8 countries in the Middle East. I think we're on number 9, maybe 10. So it's just interesting to me that that's like the narrative when it's war. It's, oh, we're going to be safer, we're going to be freer, and this and that. But actually, our freedoms are actually dwindling, to be honest. Our First Amendment is literally under threat by a foreign entity right now. Trying to say that they should jail us for things that we say about a foreign government. I don't really give a fuck what you got to say about that, bro. Like, this is America, and even if it wasn't America, I have a God-given right to use my voice to say whatever the fuck I want. And I will say whatever the fuck I want, regardless if it hurts somebody's feelings or not, because I don't give a fuck. Your feelings are not my priority, and they're not my problem. If you don't like what I have to say, then don't listen. And if it offends you, well, fuck off, because I don't care. And what I say is mostly true. That's what I try to do, is say true things. So, you know, you're really just mad at the truth. I definitely don't hate any group of people. I definitely don't hate any specific religion, because I hate all religions. As far as people, I love human beings. I don't really care for people too much because they're simpletons and they don't really do their own homework, and they just sit around and watch sports and listen to music and don't really know much of anything. They just go to public school and get whatever information they get from the media and from school is about as far as it goes. So as far as like having substantive debates and stuff like that, it's limited, because these people are so full of patriotism and propaganda that as soon as you give them some truth or give them true numbers, all of a sudden, like, you're a racist, or you're anti-American, or you're anti-Semitic because you think that Israel shouldn't be doing what it's doing. That's just true. I don't care what title you put to that. Not to mention, I don't give a fuck what you call me, because you're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay, so to me, it's all bullshit, you know. As I said in my last episode, you know, Joe Kent came out and spoke about what is the threat to America. And what did he get? Well, he got fucking annihilated by the American media. The same America that he fought for, the same America that he did 11 tours for, absolutely threw him under the bus because he jumped off the narrative. You know, Tucker Carlson the same way. He was a big figure in the right-wing politics, and then once he started speaking against the narrative and allowing Americans to have a different perspective rather than just the one that's force-fed down our throat, he was a traitor, and he's some foreign-backed entity and all kinds of crazy shit. You know, the same thing with Candace Owens. Her and Charlie Kirk built up TPUSA, and you know, then they separated ways, but then Charlie died, and so she starts investigating what happened to Charlie, and all of a sudden she's getting attacked by this Zionist machine. So, you know, there's a trend here, and it's that as soon as you speak up against Israel or this Zionist machine, then all of a sudden you're getting shut down, and they're name calling, and you're an anti-Semite, and you're a Nazi, and all this and that. Like, bro, calm down, okay? Because to me, if we're going to talk about anti-Semitism, you know what? We're not even going to go there right now. We're not even going to go there in this episode. I'll save that because that needs a whole fucking series on how much this definition has changed and how they're weaponizing it. So, I won't even get into that. But back to this thing going on in Iran. They closed the Strait of Hormuz, so they're holding up oil. And the funny thing is like we go into war in Iran, and because of where we're at with the war in Iran, we've had to lift sanctions on Russia and Iran for them to release oil. So we go over there to limit the powers, superpowers, China and Russia, to make them less powerful. But the thing is China has not lost one drop of oil coming from Iran, because that's the ships that get to go through the strait are the ones that are for China. And for Russia, we just lifted some sanctions that we've had on them for a very long time. And so they have already regained all of the money that they lost in the Ukraine war. So as far as like draining these powers, we're not at all. And to be honest, you're really going to give China a lot of power if we can't figure out what's going to happen in this Strait of Hormuz, because at the end of the day, it's going to take a third party to come in and negotiate. And whatever third party negotiates a ceasefire here is the one that's going to walk away a winner. And Donald Trump's really prideful. He's always got to win. He's always got to say, like, this is the best of the best. Like, this was the most perfect war to ever happen, and this and that. Like, dude, you're fucking conceited, first of all, and you're a narcissist. And you lied to the American people, and you sold us out, bro. Like, you sold us out. You campaigned on no new wars. You were in a debate talking about how war is a waste of time and a waste of resources, and we can't keep wasting human lives, and we can't keep wasting money without fixing America first. And you ran on that platform of America first. But actually, your policies and your actions tell us that you're not America first. They tell us that you support Israel's agenda over where America should be going and the direction America should be going in. Okay? You had the opportunity to come in and be one of the best presidents we ever had, one of the most transformative presidents of the recent future or the recent past. Okay? In 2016, you campaigned on it. In 2020, you campaigned on it. And in 2024, you campaigned on it. The golden age, no more wars, peace. You were the peacemaker, not the war maker. And here we are with one of the biggest wars we're probably going to have to be in if you don't clean this shit up. Not to mention, economically, you're going to be put in a chokehold here pretty soon, because you're releasing emergency reserves of oil when we've already been draining the shit out of them since Biden was president. And you talked all this shit about Biden having to release oil reserves to keep the price in check, and you have to do the same thing because you started a war we shouldn't be in. Okay? You broke international law in America's name. Okay? You violated international law in America's name by being the aggressor internationally, by threatening the sovereignty of Iran. Okay? And our first act of violence against Iran was to bomb a school with girls in it, ages 7 to 12 years old, 150 of them. Now, a full investigation hasn't been done, but reports say that it was an American Tomahawk missile. They were using old targeting data and old targeting technology is how that happened, supposedly. Allegedly. But you get what I'm saying? Like, it's always the propaganda machine in America is so fucking strong that it's hard to filter through the noise and the bullshit. And I just want the wars to end. I really do. I want innocent people to stop dying all over the world. I don't care if you're Muslim or Chinese or American or Jewish. I don't think you should die at all. Okay? There are extreme factions in the world. There really are. But they'll say, "Oh, Muslims are dangerous and they're extremist and this and that." Per capita, Americans are far more dangerous than Muslims are. Okay. Yes, there are a lot of them though. So the percentage of violent Muslims will be higher than the percentage of violent anybody else because they have such a huge population. Okay. They're 2.2 billion people. They're literally, I think, what is that, like 25% of the whole world's population, compared to Americans, who there's like 370 million of us, maybe we'll call it 400 million, but still, that's not even a fraction of the percentage of Muslims that there are. And yet, we've killed a astronomically higher amount of people. So, this whole violent thing, it really just pisses me off sometimes because it's so hypocritical. I think Americans are so hypocritical sometimes. And I think that Americans just need to look ourselves in the mirror, and we need to hold our politicians accountable, and we need to hold Washington accountable. And I think that the ICC needs to hold Washington accountable because they definitely did break international law. And I don't support that. Okay, you can't pretend to be the world's police and then break the law. We have police in America that fucking do that shit. Okay? And this is why. Because you're supposed to lead by example, and they're following their government leaders. Okay? Violence first, questions later. Diplomacy later. Okay? We were in the middle of talks, and Kushner and Witkoff are just, they're a mess. They shouldn't even be allowed in the fucking White House, let alone trying to talk foreign policy with foreign countries that they inherently don't like because they themselves are Zionists. Active. They wear it out loud, which is fine. That's great. You can believe in whatever you want to believe in, but you should not be negotiating American foreign policy when you have ulterior motives. You have a leader of the country that you support who has wanted a war with Iran for 40 years. So you should not be anywhere near the diplomacy table. And, that's facts. You just shouldn't be. Okay? Yeah, it's my opinion, but I'm pretty sure that's fucking facts. And I'm pretty sure every American in the fucking free country would agree with that. I think Trump's being lied to, but he's also really smart. So for me, it really only begs down to two questions, okay? Which is, one, are you compromised, Mr. President? Because between the funding of your campaign and how you got into the White House in 2024, some could argue that there's a machine behind you that wanted to put you there. Now, the second question is, if the first question, the answer is no, then the second question is, are you under threat of violence or murder for cohesion? Are you scared? Do you feel threatened? Is your family threatened? Is your family in danger? Because if it's number two, let me tell you, America would have your back more than you realize, okay? And actually, on the world stage, if you were to come clean about the foreign entity that's invaded our country and is invading our politics and our White House and our media, I'm pretty sure the world would recognize that this is happening in their countries too. Because this Zionist cabal is wide and it's reaching. Its tentacles touch everywhere. And the countries that it doesn't touch, well, they want to go to war and plant their own puppets in there. Look at Raza Pahlavi. They want him to be the leader of Iran. So you think that a guy who ran to America for amnesty or whatever the fuck they call that, and excuse me, America gave him amnesty or whatever, and you think that Iranians who are sitting there dealing with bombs falling all over their country are going to follow a leader who was in the country that's bombing them, sending out videos talking about this and that. Like, bro, you're a fucking traitor, bro. Like, I'm not even Iranian, and I look at you like a fucking traitor, because that's what you are. Like I look at our president, that's how I look at you, bro. A fucking traitor, because to me, that's what he is. And that's what President Trump is to me, you know? And that's what this war is to me. It's them not standing for Americans as they're voted to. It's them not representing Americans as we wish they would. Okay? You're spending our money all over the fucking world, and you're not fixing anything at home. So we should probably get that in check before we keep going to war. Anyways, that's enough for my rant for today. I could go on for hours, honestly. There's so much to talk about. But we'll get into that in the next episode and try to figure out. I'm going to try to wean off of this Iran thing, but it really just pisses me off, because I really hate when innocent people die, and I really hate when they use our money for it. You know, you're stealing our kids' future to steal other kids' futures, and I don't like that. I'm not with that. But I appreciate you guys. I enjoy doing this. I really hope that, you know, that this information does something for somebody. You know, you guys look into it, you do your own homework. You don't just blindly follow what you see on the news or what you read in newspapers or anything like that, if anybody reads newspapers anymore. Just be careful where you get your information. You know, do your own homework. That's what I try to do. You know, you're going to argue with people, and you'll find people that don't want to, they don't want you to look through a different lens. You know, they want you to look through that American lens or their narrative lens or whatever lens it is that suits their agenda. So, you know, open your eyes, open your ears, and do some thinking. You know, do some homework. Hold your country accountable. Because over the last 200 years, America has killed about 20 million people. So that's a lot. I don't care how many evil people are in the world. That's a lot. Okay, 20 million people, 20 million bodies is a lot of bodies. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the shares. Thanks for the comments. Just like, share, you know, let me know if there's anything you guys want to do a show on. Let me know if there's anything, you know, you want me to change in the show, anything that could be better for you guys. Just let me know. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. You know, we'll see you next time.